I'll see. Here we are. Okay. Good morning. This is part 2 of Friday, January 7th, Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee meeting. We're continuing our work meeting with a team who's been helping us over the last year and a half on weatherization. So with that, I'll go back to our MC for the outside team, Mr. Lunderville. I'm not sure who you've got on deck next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we had great presentations from Dan Riley from EVT and Sarah Phillips from OEO this morning, impressing us with the great work that they've done to keep workforce and coaching, counseling, and the great work that Weatherization Assistance Program going. We're turning the second half here to talk about some of the really innovative, exciting things that we're doing that have been led by Maura Collins and her team at VHFA. And following her will be Richard Fazy to talk about some of the weatherization policy pieces and some recommendations from our team on funding in particular. So with that, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it to Maura Collins.
Yes, please. Thank you. Welcome back, Ms. Collins. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good morning. For the record, I'm Maura Collins. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Housing Finance Agency. And I know I've testified in this committee several times before, but I took a look at Richard Fazy's upcoming slide deck, and I noticed that early on he put a bio slide in to sort of orient you all to his work and role. And so I wanted to start by correcting his slides. I also thought I'd talk a little bit about my role in bio since I hadn't put that in. Richard, thank you for coming on screen. First and foremost, I don't know at what point in your career you got so impressive that you didn't have enough room to include the fact that you used to work at VHFA, but I expect that will be corrected next time we testify together. When Richard was at VHFA, he ran several energy-related programs for us during that time that focused on energy-efficient mortgage financing, as well as encouraging more energy-efficient construction and renovations. And so VHFA does have a very long history in this realm in many ways. It's interesting to me that Richard and I did not work together at VHFA, and yet this year I'm now celebrating 20 years at VHFA. So our history here, VHFA's role has come and gone over the years. But onto my own bio, or at least the role that I play on this team, it can be a little less clear to some. Since I'm the mother of young children, I have to admit that I still sing Sesame Street songs. And when I look at this witness list, I start humming, "Which of these things is not like the other?" I mean, this lineup of the collaborative group today is really impressive, and I'm really pleased to join them in my small role because we have the state's Weatherization Assistance Program Administrator, a utility executive, Efficiency Vermont as just a worldwide leader as an energy efficiency utility, and a lifelong energy and consultant and expert. So to those on this committee and in other energy-related circles, I can appreciate that putting the responsibility of creating a tariff that would be placed on utility bills in the hands of a housing finance agency may not be an obvious choice. But when we heard about this opportunity, VHFA eagerly jumped in with both feet, and we haven't looked back since. We had that reaction because of the history of VHFA being committed to energy efficiency, but also really because our mission is focused on housing affordability. And the definition of housing affordability includes the cost to utilities. Academically, we always say in the housing world that housing should be no more than 30% of a household's income so they can afford those other critical expenses like the childcare that I have, the healthcare, transportation, food, basic necessities. And when we calculate what 30% to go to housing, that is your mortgage, your property taxes, your insurance, and utilities. For renters, it's the cost of the rent and utilities. And statewide, we know that 34% of Vermonters are paying more than that 30% standard, meaning they're not living in affordable housing. For 15% of those, they're paying more than half their income for their housing, which means that they are very high risk of eviction or foreclosure or losing their home. So we are working hard and fast on creating new housing opportunities. You'll hear about this in other Senate committees. You'll hear about construction efforts in partnership with VHCB and the state's Department of Housing. We're trying to create more rental homes and homeownership. We also have affordable financing through VHFA's longstanding existing programs. We're launching a mortgage assistance program to help pay past due bills, which you should be looking out for an email from me on any day now. When we get Treasury approval, I'll be telling you all that we're opening up a mortgage assistance program. We have down payment assistance to lower the cost of ownership, but we haven't done enough to address the utility cost, the utility component of affordability. And so that's why I'm here today. And if we're serious that we want to make housing more affordable, we need to address the cost of heating and cooling by making those costs more stable, more predictable, and ideally lower overall. So not only does this help households on a monthly basis, but for homeowners, it can really, when we invest in the home, we help build equity as the value of that home increases. So I have a few slides that are up on your website. You've already heard about the work of others and how this all has come together through your support last year and the investments. You've already heard about the Weatherization Assistance Program, Efficiency Vermont's work on workforce development and other incentives. There was $9 million appropriated to VHFA to stand up a weatherization program targeted to low and moderate income households. And as Neil mentioned, you also heard from Dan and Sarah and others. The full Weatherization at Scale effort has many elements and initiatives. I'm just going to speak about one. That's the WRAP effort. Now, you'll remember us talking about this as a tariff on bill pilot last year. I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's only probably 12 people in the state who knew what a tariff on bill program could have meant. And so what we tried to do is clear up that confusion by calling this what it is. It is a weatherization repayment assistance pilot. We are trying to, this is the financing piece. This is the piece, not Efficiency Vermont does the piece, the incentive money that is largely grant funded to households to pay down the cost of weatherization. This is the piece that gets repaid by customers, but it still is assistance because since it's appropriated dollars, that repayment plan can be based on a very low cost of funds. And you'll see from the structure of what we've created, the different assistance we've provided. Now, I have so much gratitude for the group who's come together to work on this pilot. I may be presenting it here, but in no way is this VHFA's solely our work and effort. This is a shared goal by the organizations you see listed on my slide, smart people with tons of experience, a willingness to dive into details and stay customer focused. And so it's been great to work with them as we build out this program. You can see that the first step we've done was to research. Tariff on bill programs are not a Vermont new idea. These do exist in other communities across the country. We've been talking with them. We've been learning from them. We've been hearing about their experiences over the years and trying to take the best ideas and avoid the common pitfalls that we see. There's also this EESI group, which is a DC-based nonprofit that provides technical assistance to groups looking to develop on-bill finance programs. And so we've been looking to them to help guide us as well. Neil already walked through these benefits of weatherization much more eloquently, so I'm going to skip walking through this in detail, but I want to call out two benefits that I think often get glossed over. And as a houser, they're the ones that I find among the most compelling. I know it's supposed to be carbon reduction, but I'm going to still tell you that some of the other ones are that making energy related investments in lower income households who are too often left behind when we're talking about electric vehicles and rooftop solar and battery storage and more is critical. We need to make sure that the tools that high net worth households have to reduce their carbon emissions are also available to those who often have fewer options. And so the RAP pilot is designed not just for those with means, not just for those who have home equity they can tap to make improvements to their home, but the structure of the pilot that I'm going to explain prioritizes the most energy inefficient homes, often older homes. And the data shows that these are predominantly in more rural areas where transportation costs are higher and the like. The pilot is designed to overcome the barriers of traditional financing by making it open to all the customers of eligible utilities without traditional personal loan underwriting. And another goal that we have that we are still working to achieve in the design of this pilot is how we're going to connect this weatherization assistance with the health and safety repairs that homes often need. We've all talked a lot about how, it doesn't make sense that you blow in insulation under a roof that's falling apart and leaking, and that insulation just gets wet. And so again, today I'm in a committee focused on natural resources, but at the heart, I'm a houser, and our participation means that you have a houser at every stage of this conversation. And so one thing that VHFA is very focused on is to figure out how we can better align the great weatherization work that gets done in these projects with the basic home repairs that we know many homes need. Our housing stock is the 9th oldest in the nation, and VHFA sees the needs of our housing stock firsthand when we do our mortgage financing or in our rental programs when we finance the work of substantial rehabilitation and affordable housing. So the pilot we've designed is aimed at both owners and renters. That does include manufactured homes. We're starting with rental buildings that are no more than 4 units per building, where there's a single utility meter in the property owner's name. But we do want there to be a future phase of this pilot where we can grow this to cover more multifamily buildings. That does get more complicated when there are multiple meters and you start to have discussions about, well, if it's a 3-story home, do the weatherization, if you blow in insulation on the roof, is that really serving each unit equally, or is there some other way we need to look at that? There's a lot of nuance we still have to work through. But before we get too disappointed that this isn't open to all renters, I'm going to say the word pilot so many times, you will get sick of it, but this is a pilot, and we do need to not hold up the entire launch of the program just because we haven't figured out all those answers. And I just want to remind you all that even though we think of rentals as multifamily housing, it's important to know that roughly 30% of our state's rentals are in single family homes. And it's even more so if you go up to 4-unit structures like we're covering. So this really does open up the market considerably. And I know that some folks I hear mention they are interested in opening up a similar RAP program to commercial building owners and other types of structures beyond residences. But that's really beyond the scope of this program. And so I'm hoping that what we can build and learn from this may be able to inform other uses of similar financing for other types of buildings.
Well, and just a quick note, so on pilots, this committee has done a lot of pilots, and the weatherization program actually that we launched last year grew out of a previous pilot. So it's a great way to bootstrap our way into bigger, longer term programs.
I couldn't agree more. And I think my understanding is that the home energy loan program that Efficiency Vermont runs now began as a Department of Public Service pilot as well. So I think there's a lot of history of starting and learning and evolving. So the process in the past year since I last spoke with you, this RAP program has come to take on this format that customers will work with either the energy efficiency utility, the EEU, directly, or a contractor of them to understand the program and to understand how this all works. That household would receive a reduced cost energy audit of their home. And from that, there would be a list of recommended actions that will improve the energy efficiency of the home. Those audits would be completed by a Building Performance Institute certified contractor, BPI certified. And when the list of recommended measures is made to the homeowner, it would be made so that if they choose to go forward with this pilot, the homeowner would need to do all of the measures recommended. Because that's going to be what produces the best results for the home. And they would not be allowed to cherry pick the items that they want to do, leaving other things that may have better impact behind. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. So taking the information from the audit and using an agreed upon model that we're building as a part of this pilot, the financial benefits of the proposed measures are going to be assessed. That's why I say there's going to be a recommendation that takes into account all those measures together and what the financial impacts are. And as a part of the pilot's underwriting, we're requiring a minimum that the customer must be able to save in the model. It will show that they must be able to save at least 10% off their utility bill. Now, we know, I've heard Sarah Phillips testify many times that weatherization often saves customers more like 30% off their bill on average. So going down to 10% shouldn't be a barrier, but we really feel it's important to ensure that this public resource, this funding really goes into homes that need the work and where we can show that there would be a real benefit. And so as a part of this model and financial analysis, the EEU will be at the table and the customer will know about any incentive money that may be available to them to help lower the cost of the project. And so the customer would have to repay less if they go forward. And the length of the agreement, the terms, the specific terms of the repayment is going to be set individually to maximize the benefits to the home while still ensuring the affordability to the resident. So the terms will be set at the lesser of 15 years or 90% of the expected weighted useful life of the measures that are installed. So if my home needs 6 things done to it, and you weight the average life of each of those investments, then we're going to take 90% of it, keep it a little shorter, and that the term of this repayment program will not exceed that, because we never want a homeowner or a customer, because this is for renters too, we never want a customer to be paying on something that already needs to be replaced.
Can I ask a quick question? So with this 10% savings floor or guarantee in terms of what the package of measures will encompass, does this sort of translate into a simple way of saying it to someone like, there's no reason not to go ahead because we're guaranteeing that you're going to be saving from the outset?
As long as you strike the word guarantee, then yes. So there's no reason not to participate because the model shows that you should save at least 10%. We have not included a guarantee of that savings, but I'm going to talk in a minute about our auditing procedures and also what our focus group found in terms of people okay with that guarantee. Not something that the consumers we talked about felt was critical to make their decisions.
Sure. Okay. But the model.
But yes, that is, but the ultimate, what you're trying to put forward, yes. We, again, want to make sure that the resources are put in the homes that need it most. And we want to make sure that we are helping the consumer at all accounts. And so while I can appreciate that we all should want lower carbon reduction, hearing what Sarah was talking about with the just transitions work and the look at equity, we also need to make sure that dollars and cents, this makes good financial decisions for these customers.
Sure. So I think most people vote with their wallet on decisions like this. And if it sounds like, as best you know from the modeling done, people will be cash flow positive from the start.
That is how this whole model, that's a foundation this is built on.
Okay, thank you.
So because of the appropriation, thank you very much, that you all provided, VHFA has the capital to give to the contractor, and the work will get done. This is the approved contractor completes the work, and that approved contractor, again, is that BPI certified. And the RAP funding will then get paid back over time as a charge on the home's utility bill. And the utility provider is acting similar to what I'm used to, and I'm going to call them a loan servicer. They're accepting and processing payments and statements, and VHFA is what we do best, acting as like a secondary market where we've provided that capital and we are transferring money back and forth with the utility, and the utility is transferring the money back and forth with the customer. I think it's important that the utility is in the best position to maintain that relationship with the customer. And that is not something, VHFA is not set up as a customer interfacing entity. In fact, I'll say our mortgage programs are done through participating lenders. And so I think that this really sticks to another one of our core principles, which is make sure each of us in this process is doing what we do best. And in this case, that on-bill repayment is done through the utility provider, and then we will work with the utilities on the back end.
So is it quite similar to how an electric bill includes an energy efficiency charge that the utility gathers up and then basically remits to the energy efficiency utility?
I'm seeing that Neil's head is nodding yes, so I'm going to say yes, but this is where we all stick to our own lanes. And having never touched any EEU money except to pay my own electric bill, but yes, I do believe that that is the case.
Senator, if I just jump in, we haven't got exactly figured that out, but to the customer, it probably look like a line item similar to the energy efficiency charge. And in practice, it'd be likely very much the same way, pull the money back in and send it back to VHFA. There are slight differences probably on how it will all work, but effectively for the customer and in practice, it will look very similar.
Great, thank you.
So not listed on this slide is one of my favorite elements of work, which is evaluation and auditing a percentage of the cases that we do. I say it's one of my favorite things because the 20 years I've spent at VHFA, I actually came up through our research and policy areas. And so I really like great planning, but I also like to go back and be reflective about how that planning actually played out in reality. So we learned this and got this idea from OEO. And we're trying to learn as much as we can from partners who have decades of experience in this work. So absolutely, we're standing on the shoulders of giants here. And so what we want to do is mirror what they've done in the WAP program to go back and audit some of these homes and see what their actual energy usage was so that we can learn and grow our knowledge base here and start seeing that, oh, look, maybe some of these proposed measures are not having the payout that we thought they would, and then grow from there. And that will continually evolve. That doesn't mean that we've done anything wrong. That means that technology has changed and needs have changed, weather changes. And so we want to continue to keep this program nimble in that way. Now, we've talked about the benefits of weatherization, but I want to focus in on the benefits of this pilot specifically and what we're trying to accomplish here. First off, this is going to provide a reduced cost energy audit of homes across the state. We're going to have great data. I'm a data nerd. That this is not only a benefit to the household, but also to the state overall. The customers can also enjoy the benefits of weatherization without needing to provide upfront cash for the work. And since we're focused on low and moderate income customers, we need to recognize that they often don't have upfront cash. So the work, when I say immediate benefits, it means the work gets done now, but the repayment happens over time as they're enjoying the savings of lower utility bills. So that's a really nice marriage. This is sometimes, I know, State Treasurer and I and others, we get into conversations about when is financing the best tool and when is appropriating or granting money or something like that the best tool. This is a great example of when financing is a wonderful tool for those who can afford it, because it really marries that long-term savings with the long-term outlay of the money, but the work gets done up front. And then this isn't a personal loan, and that's a benefit because RAP isn't a loan to the individual, but rather an investment connected to the building's utility meter. So there's not, when I talk about underwriting, I'm talking about underwriting the home. I'm not talking about underwriting the owner or the renter in terms of credit and assets and income and the like. And the repayment is made by that current resident. It's whoever is enjoying the comfort, health, and safety of the weatherization work. So it transfers if a home sells or if a renter is moving. That means that if a homeowner participates in the RAP pilot and completes the weatherization measures, but then sells their home before the full amount is repaid, they're no longer obligated to make the RAP payments, similar to renters. Now, there's disclosures that need to be made. I keep likening it to those of us with rented hot water heaters. That is a disclosure that's made to the next building's occupant that, by the way, you have a rental agreement for this hot water heater. And so that disclosure has to be made, but it's not necessarily something that needs to be paid off with a balloon payment before someone moves. And that has been a longstanding barrier to people participating in weatherization because they don't know how long they're going to live there, and they aren't sure if they'll be there long enough to have a good return on investment of their money. And a lot of us, I mean, I think about it when I say I've been at VHFA 20 years, a lot of us, when we start in a home or a job or whatever, we don't really think it's going to last that long. And then lo and behold, it does. So I think that has really held people back from this program. This pilot also the goal is to really eliminate that split incentive that we've long heard about for rental property owners. So the same goes for rental property assisted with RAP, that each new tenant will enjoy the benefits of the lowered utility bills and the increased comfort, but only the current tenant who's benefiting from the program is the one repaying this project. And then there is the steady and convenient repayment process through a utility bill. It makes it easy. It's not a separate payment. That's convenient for customers. Income eligible customers are going to be able to combine this low cost financing with grants offered through the EEUs or other utilities that so this work can be done more affordably. There's no liens or deeds on the property, which means this isn't going to interfere with applications for mortgages, foreclosures by lenders, resale, or the like. That's been a concern over programs like PACE and others. And I have to say, as a mortgage lender, that's something that we're always looking out for to make sure that this doesn't trip up other very critical lending. And while the property owner has to allow this to happen, when I talk about the split incentive, it will help the property value by putting these measures in, I'm assuming. And that repayment, though, is made by the renter, and the lower bills are enjoyed by the renter. So it's not like that landlord or property owner needs to put up the upfront money and then the renter receives the benefit. This is getting past that. Now, in recognition of the recommendations of the Just Transitions group that Sarah talked about, we are designing this pilot with feedback loops on those who will be served and who will benefit. And so Sarah talked about bringing the voices of Vermonters more into the conversation, and we've been trying to do that through the development of this program. We held a series of focus groups and talked with consumers who were interested in weatherization and maybe even had gone through with an audit or were interested in an audit, but then hadn't done the weatherization work directly. And also talked to other potential customers. And what we found out from those conversations is that when we described the design of the RAP program as we have it now, they really liked having the long-term repayment. That made it more affordable, and they liked having that option. They also really liked not having to undergo traditional underwriting, loan underwriting, and thinking about being assessed in that way. We asked them, we tried to pull out what we thought some of their concerns would be and say, you know, does this bother you? We wondered if you have a surcharge on your utility bill that is steady for years, it means that sometimes, you know, people enjoy lower utility costs in the summer. And is that going to bother them if they have higher summertime utility costs? And their response was, no, that's not a problem at all. We really like the idea that our homes could be more comfortable in the summer because they are thinking about this as much as a cooling opportunity, as much as a heating opportunity for their home. I will tell you that I'm not surprised to hear this. They didn't love the idea that if the initial audit and assessment showed that for participation, as I said, 6 measures would have to be installed in their home or done. They didn't like the idea of being told what to do. They wanted to be able to pick the ones that they wanted most and leave maybe some of the others behind. I don't know what would have led them to think about what they wouldn't want to do, but they didn't like being told what to do overall. So that may be a concern of this program that we're going to have to work through. They liked that renters were included, but were disappointed that we couldn't offer it to all renters writ large right off the bat. And so, like I said, that is a shared goal that we have, but it's one that is going to take some more time to develop once we see how this pilot goes.
Can I just check in for a moment here? I'm mindful of the clock. We have a hard stop in about 20 minutes. I just want to make sure we're going to get to Richard. So I know that your MC is keeping an eye on everything, but I'm just being a clock minder for the group here.
Well, then how about I wrap up in the next moment or two? I will tell you, this shows you some of the progress we've done to date. We've been in, one of the most important things is developing a pilot term sheet that was done in consultation with the Public Service Department. They were supportive of the term sheet overall, and we've been able to change that to accommodate their concerns and questions and the like. We've created the financial screening tool and how the billing workflow is going to work. We're in the process. When I say we, this is totally not VHFA. The EEUs and what we're calling the program administrators are really mapping out the customer experience and planning for each step along the way. And right now we're just beginning to conceive and draft all the disclosures, bringing legal counsel on board, frankly, to really roll up our sleeves on this. And VIPSA developed a draft tariff that's being reviewed by the distribution utilities now. We need to finalize that tariff prior to submitting it to the PUC, but we need all those disclosures done as a part of that. And so, you know, what we're aiming for is that there's one common tariff that is largely identical for all the utilities. And so, but each utility will need to file it with the PUC individually. I'm naively thinking that they can do a find and replace and, you know, replace their name throughout the document. because what we're aiming for is a statewide program that's available to all participating, all customers of participating utilities across the state. I think that's a real reason why this program is going to be a unique model. It's not one of those regional models we've been talking to from across the country. We're working on the marketing strategy and a lot of other details. Right now, our goal is to complete all this by early this summer and launch the program as close to the start of fiscal year 23 as we can this summer. And the last slide I have is just a reminder of that Neil has talked about, this goal of 120,000 homes. Having done 30,000 is tremendous. And yet, if we stick at the rate we are now of 2,500 a year, we are not going to reach our goal. With 90,000 homes and only 8 years to go, the trajectory isn't going to get us there. So we need all hands on deck. And maybe Sarah Phillips can't say this 3 weeks before the budget address, but I feel like I can to say that we're going to need more money for the weatherization assistance program so that the lowest income Vermonters are not left behind and they truly need grant funding. But in order for RAP and that weatherization assistance and everything else to be successful, we do have to grow the workforce, the supply chain availability, and the demand for this program through those energy saving counseling that Sarah was talking about. And so it's going to require a steady commitment for incentive funding through the EEUs and to meet the state's needs. But if we're ever going to achieve the kind of scale that is needed here, then it's going to take all of that. Okay. So I don't know if there are any final questions.
Well, I'll just note very briefly that it's very exciting to see how this proposal has developed, and it's getting more and more concrete. The details are being worked out. It addresses so many of the frustrating obstacles that have held us back in making progress in this area, where everyone has said for a decade or more, we know this is a good investment, but obstacles have prevented especially lower and moderate income Vermonters from taking this step primarily because of financing. Well, plenty of other things too, but financing first and foremost. So let's look forward to supporting this work as best we can and helping the pilot succeed. With that, so Mr. Fazy, you know our life here in the State House. We're going to be going to the floor at 11:30 sharp. So you've got from now to 11:29.
Okay. Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you for the time and everybody's great presentations so far. I'll try to go through as quickly as I can because I'm sure there'll be a couple wrap-up questions as well too. And I'm basically just going to be reiterating a lot of what you heard today and sort of connecting the dots to remind us that these efforts are really in line with where we're heading in the state on a number of fronts. So I'll just reference the Comprehensive Energy Plan, which the Department of Public Service has released in draft form the end of last year, the Climate Action Plan, which also came out from the Vermont Climate Council a little bit. And I don't necessarily need to go through the weatherization program to date. I have a little bit of history and want to reiterate the points, especially that Maura just made about the need, and this is not new news, the need for the funding and focus on these efforts going forward. So regardless of say, I had a minute to update my bio, Maura, so you can see that I do have VHFA listed in there as well. It was ancient history. As most of you are aware, I'm one of the principals at Energy Futures Group in Heinsberg. I was at VEIC for 21 years, involved with on the trade side now as a board secretary of the Building Performance Professionals Association. That's the home performance contractors trade group in Vermont. been involved with this group and a number of others in trying to figure out how we're going to make progress with this area of improving our building stock. Just a little bit of ancient history. Back in the late 80s, VHFA was one of the founding members of starting VEIC when Alan Hunt was in Mara's position as the executive director, among others. We started Energy Rated Homes of Vermont, which is Senator Bray can talk about his experience with that, but we don't have time today. And really, VEIC and Efficiency Vermont originally came out of VHFA among some other organizations. So there is a lot of connected dots and history in all this work. So we've got our net zero building in Heinsberg. So I just want to make a couple points here. The draft that's out for public comment right now from the comprehensive energy plan, which the department puts out every 3 years, I believe. Really, we worked very closely with them. They were part of the EAN Weatherization at Scale Action Group. And you'll see that the recommendations that are mentioned here are all of those that you've heard today and you've been hearing. So we're on board with weatherizing 120,000 homes by 2030, ramping up the workforce, facilitating the process for customers, including counseling services, public and private investments, devoting significant federal monies to kickstart this pace and get us on track for meeting those numbers. And then as well too, some really innovative work that's been some of it's been underway, but there's more to be done about exploring other ways besides the traditional funding sources for paying for some of this work. So additional work working with the healthcare industries. We've heard today some of the benefits we see from weatherization and property insurance entities as well too. So we know that there are positive outcomes from weatherization, and can we capture those benefits as a funding stream for some of this work? Acknowledging that this is not going to be a panacea and enough for us to meet our needs, but we're going to need sort of all hands on deck to meet some of these numbers.
Very quick question, Richard. On the healthcare front, a year ago, I talked with Neil and Mike Smith. AHS has a waiver with CMS, and for the national healthcare dollars we receive, that waiver was going to be revised, I think, in 2022 or resubmitted, something like that. Do you have a partner in the group now that is looking at allowing Medicare, Medicaid dollars, healthcare dollars to actually flow into this program?
I don't know, Neil, I don't know where that is at this point. So
yeah, Senator Bray, that's thank you for the reminder and observation. Sarah's actually the current, Sarah, go ahead. You jump right in here.
Sure, yeah. The local AHS rep, I'll just jump in and say that yes, the waiver is currently being negotiated with CMS. No, there is nothing specific under the waiver request right now that addresses weatherization. We do have an interagency group on weatherization and health that is being convened by our colleagues at the Vermont Department of Health. So that's the highest level update on that.
Okay, great. Well, we'll follow up. I just wanted to check in and not lose that thread. Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you. As well, just another point, although it's not directly related to weatherization, it is because every new home that we build, if we can avoid having it to be weatherized in the future, that's a good investment. So as part of the comprehensive energy plan, there is they are reiterating the trajectory and the goals in the state to move our new construction codes to net zero ready buildings by 2030 through building standards. And really that's to avoid having to weatherize these homes later in life. As an example of one that I drive by every day in my town, a new double wide home that just went in, built to 1976 energy standards, because there's a federal preemption and our local energy standards cannot apply to manufactured homes on permanent foundations. So here we have a brand new home, not yet occupied, just finished last week, rolled in a propane tank that's going to need to be replaced with a heat pump at some point down the line after it gets weatherized. So seems like a lost opportunity, but just want to make that point along the way here. Somewhat out of our control, but because of the federal preemption, but it seems like it might be time for us to address this this shortcoming in our relationship with the feds. Just an aside, but related to what we're talking about today. The Vermont Climate Council as well released its action plan in early December of last year. Again, similar, the same numbers. We worked closely with them. EFG worked with Cadmus to do the modeling behind it. Referencing the additional 90,000 homes that need to be weatherized by 2030, coordinated workforce, enhanced coaching and navigation services as recommendations, tariff on-bill financing. We have to change that to RAP, I guess, going forward to update make sure that people understand what this is being talked about here, and allocating funding needing to achieve the goal. So a theme throughout. How are we going to pay for this? Mara had these similar graphs that I pulled from the climate action plan, sort of overlaid together. But really, I think the point here, the one on the left, is the cumulative total, getting from where we are now at 30,000 homes up to 120,000 by 2030. The graph on the right showing the number of homes per year that we're going to need to be close to in order to meet that goal. We're at about 2,000 a year historically. We're going to need to be ramping that up pretty quickly, and so this really seems like this is the focus of where this work is going to be needed. How are we going to meet these goals with the resources we have and build up the workforce and provide the funding to make that happen? If there are additional details, I won't go through. This is historically where the 30,000 homes have come from: EVT, Burlington Electric, Vermont Gas, OEO, and 3E Thermal. You can see that over time, over the last 10 years or so, based on funding availability, things have gone up and down. So we have historically the capacity to do more than 3,000 homes a year, but we've been more recently around 2,000. And a lot of this is just the function of the resources available. And then the last point I wanted to make is that there's a depth of savings. This is percent of savings by each of those different entities over time. And with more money, you can get better savings. So while the average is somewhere around 20% savings, you can see that 3E Thermal has really done a great job at getting some deeper savings with greater resources, and focusing on multifamily buildings also helps as well too. But so there are some variable factors that the deeper savings we get, the fewer homes we'll have to do in order to meet our goals. So there are some variables, but generally we still have a lot of work to do and to work within the reality of what we know. So my last slide. A memo that we did circulate as part of the materials for today, a memo from this group from October of last year, and the highlights of that really are that we're going to need funding. Short-term funding through 2026 is really a ramp to longer-term funding. We need to find and establish what those additional sources will be, and provide some market certainty and to meet those projections. And we've heard that today as well too. That the market we feel like the market will respond if they can see that we've got some commitments and some certainty for business planning going forward. We suggested supporting a minimum of $72 million of state and federal funds for the next 4 years for this to support this steady ramp up. And then as well too, we've talked a little bit about, and you'll spend some more time talking about the clean heat standard. We want to make sure that weatherization is part of that, because it certainly can play a critical role. We're really excited about this new potential policy. We just want to make sure that weatherization remains part of that. And we are all on board thinking that there's a role to play there, but we're going to need all hands on deck to make this 120,000 home goal. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions or turn things back to Neil.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Fazy? And just so to help us all keep track, because bills haven't all reached committees yet. So there will be a clean heat standard bill again in this committee, but we know that we're expecting the House to lead on that. We'll be doing our weatherization bill as a committee bill, in part because it's going to be a mix again of, it's going to be relatively light on legislative language, and the major things we're going to be doing, I think, are going to be making those funding commitments. And then back to Ms. Collins was saying about no need to be apologizing about housing. We also have an Act 250 bill, and part of the purpose of that is to support the development of additional housing, as in particular affordable housing in it. So all these things, as we know, they're knit together pretty closely, and so we'll look forward to working with you as we continue this work. I mean, I think today was, from my point of view, it's very encouraging news. A lot of great things have happened since the last session, and it feels like things are really coming together. And there's a pretty clear pathway forward for us. So it's all good news. We will be reaching back out to you to help us dig into more details on things as we, for instance, I would say on the workforce piece, that seems like one of the obvious ones where we have the biggest opportunity to try to lean into this and do something helpful to the program. Happily, Senator Westman sits on appropriations, and that was a key connection for this committee last year because, as you'll recall, we actually passed our bill in the form of the budget because in the midst of developing it is when all that ARPA money was announced. So there was a lot of money in play. It made sense to stay in the appropriations bill at that point. So I don't know if any committee members have any thoughts to share, or if there's any questions from any of our guests today to the committee. You know, we're open to getting questions. It usually goes the other way, but
I don't know that we prepared for that, Senator.
Yeah. Well, time's up. All right. Okay, well, so we have a few minutes till we go to the floor. If there are no other questions, thank you all for coming in, committee members and anyone watching from home or whatever. There's a lot more information in the handouts that our guests have provided for today and in their slide decks. All these things will be on, if they're not already on the committee webpage, they'll be on the webpage by the end of the day. So I just want to thank everyone and look forward to continuing to work and moving our way up that curve. So, so committee, we have about 5 minutes till we're on the floor.